Welcome back, students. Now this is a short question, not a short note, but it is a short question, okay, and it is in two parts. So you can, the question goes like this: describe the contents and coverings of the spermatic cord, okay. So in first part it is the contents, okay, and in second part we will learn about the coverings of the spermatic cord and its significance, okay, of these coverings, okay, how they are derived ultimately, these coverings, okay. So this may be a short question, right? We have to write into these various headings. Let us come first to the first heading, introduction, where we will I will tell you about the spermatic cord, okay. Now this is spermatic cord is a cord-like structure. That's why it is called as the spermatic cord. It is made up of the soft tissue. There are various soft tissue which I will tell you in the contents of the spermatic cord, made up of various soft tissues, okay. But the most important content or constituent of the spermatic cord is the ductus deferens or the vas deferens, which is a strong muscular tube. When I say strong, means it is thick walled, made up of the smooth muscle, okay. This is a muscular tube, and this strong muscular tube, okay, it carries the sperms from the epididymis, right from the tail of the epididymis up to the prostatic part of the urethra, okay. So that is the the vas deferens or the ductus deferens, okay, which is the main constituents of the spermatic cord. Now this spermatic cord extends from the deep inguinal ring to the testes, okay. The vas deferens was extending from tail of the epididymis, okay, posterior to the testes and going right up to the prostate, okay. But here it extends deep to the spermatic cord, particularly, not the vas deferens. It extends from the deep inguinal ring to the testes, okay. Deep inguinal ring, it starts and goes right up to the testes. That is the spermatic cord. It is a spermatic cord, and this spermatic cord is covered by the three different facial layers, okay, which forms the part of the spermatic cord, okay. That means a spermatic cord, it is the constituent part of the three layers are there. That means if you will remove these three layers from spermatic cord, then the other contents, they will not have the definite boundaries, okay, will not have. So this is about the spermatic cord, okay, spermatic cord. Now let us come to the second point, and that is the contents of the spermatic cord. The content of the spermatic cords, they are many, okay, they are many contents are there. It is, number one is the ductus deferens or the vas deferens, okay. This is, we have already talked, ductus deferens, which is a muscular tube which carries the sperm from the testes, that is epididymis, to that of the prostatic part of the urethra. Then second important part which is present in the spermatic cord is that of the pampiniform plexus of veins. It is a very prominent plexus where the veins, they are interanastomosing and forming the plexus, and they are surrounding to the vas deferens and to the arteries, that is the testicular arteries, okay, and they are just particularly at that level where temperature is going out of this plexus, okay, pampiniform plexus. Then there comes the third constituent, which is lymphatics of testis and epididymis. Lymphatics of testis and epididymis, they collect the lymph from the testis and epididymis, and then these lymphatics, they go through this spermatic cord, okay, and then they open into, they pour their lymph into the aortic and the para-aortic group of the lymph node in the abdominal cavity, okay. So this is how the testis and epididymis, they drain their lymph into the aortic and para-aortic group of the lymph node. Now the third constituent the fourth one here is the arteries. There are three arteries, okay? There are three arteries which are present in the spermatic cord. Number one artery is the testicular artery, and this testicular artery, it supplies the blood to the testes, okay, and to the epididymis. So this is the testicular artery, and this takes origin from that of the abdominal aorta. Why it takes origin from the abdominal aorta? Though the testis is outside the abdominal cavity in the scrotum. Now this is because in the fetal age, the testis develops from the posterior abdominal wall, and then it comes out of the abdominal cavity, what is called as the descent of the testes in the scrotum. So it carries along with it the testicular artery, which takes origin from that of the abdominal aorta. Okay. Now let us come to the second artery, and this is the cremasteric artery. And this cremasteric artery is responsible for supply of the blood to the cremasteric muscles, okay? And this artery is derived from the inferior epigastric artery. When I was teaching you the Hasselbalch triangle, I told you that the lateral boundary of this Hasselbalch or inguinal triangle is formed by the inferior epigastric artery. The same artery gives a branch to the which is called as the cremasteric artery, okay? Then the third artery, which is the constituent of the or content of the spermatic cord, is the artery of the ductus deferens or the vas deferens. And this artery, this supplies to that muscular tube, okay, ductus deferens. And this artery is derived from the inferior vesical artery. It is derived from the inferior vesical artery. Right, then we come to the nerves. What are the nerves which are present in the spermatic cord? Okay, now it is the important nerve is the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve. Okay, and this genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve, it gives a branch to the cremasteric muscle. A branch arises, which is the branch going to the cremasteric muscle. Okay, now so this is the genital branch. The second category of nerve is the sympathetic nerves of testes to the testes, and they are coming by forming a plexus around the testicular artery, and these nerves, they are supplying to the blood vessels, which are ultimately the blood vessels of the testes. Okay, so these are sympathetic, they regulate the blood flow in the testes. So these are the sympathetic nerve. So these are two different categories of nerve. Sympathetic nerve, okay, supplying to the blood vessel of testes, is autonomic nerve, while the genital branch of genitofemoral is somatic nerve, supplying to the cremasteric muscles. Okay, Now some books will describe a third nerve which is as a constituent or contents of the spermatic cord, that is the ilioinguinal nerve. And this ilioinguinal nerve actually is not a contents of the spermatic cord, as it lies outside the spermatic cord on the surface of the spermatic cord. Okay, let us see now, after just knowing this different structure which are the contents of the spermatic cord, we will now come to a diagram, a TS of the spermatic cord, where I will show you all these contents which can be seen by the naked eye. This is the transverse section of the spermatic cord, and let us see first the contents. That was the ductus deferens here. Okay, the first content we have seen, the ductus deferens of us. See, this is that strong muscular transverse section of the ductus deferens. It is made up of the smooth muscle, see the narrow lumen but the thick muscular wall. So this is that ductus deferens which carries the sperm, okay, from the epididymis, okay, from the so this is the main constituents or the content of the spermatic cord. Then let us see the pampiniform plexus. Okay, see the pampiniform. Now all these in blue color, which irregular tubes which I have shown you, these are representing the pampiniform plexus of the veins which forms an intranastomosing network around the vas deferens, around the arteries, testicular artery as a ductus deferens. So this is a pampiniform plexus of the vein is present here. Okay, lymphatics of the testis and epididymis I cannot show you here because they are so thin, they are not seen by naked eye. Then arteries, and arteries they were the three different arteries. This is see here the testicular artery which was coming from abdominal aorta and going to supply the testes. Okay, so this is the testicular artery. Then there is a third artery, a second artery, the cremasteric nerves and vessels. This is artery, vein and the nerve, and this is the cremasteric artery. Okay, and we have seen that this cremasteric artery, it takes origin from that of the inferior epigastric artery. Then there is an artery here, artery of the ductus deferens. This is that third artery. See this one? So first, second and three arteries are there, arteries of the ductus deferens, and this is a branch from the inferior vesical artery, okay, given in the pelvic cavity. So this is that artery of the ductus deferens. So there are three arteries, out of which the cremasteric artery is lying outside the internal spermatic fascia, between cremasteric muscle and internal spermatic fascia. Okay, the other two they are inside. Okay, other deep to the internal spermatic fascia, right? Then there are the nerves. Okay, and nerves are genital branch of genitofemoral nerve. Okay, genital sorry, this is the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve is here, and which itself gives a branch, and this branch is going to the cremasteric muscles. Okay, so it is here. So branch has come here from genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve. Second type of the nerves are the sympathetic nerves, which forms a plexus around the testicular artery. Now the sum of the books will describe another nerve which is present as a constituent or the content of the spermatic cord, and that is the ilioinguinal nerve. Okay, now but this ilioinguinal nerve is not deep to the external spermatic fascia or coverings. Okay, so it lies on the surface. I can write here. So this is that nerve which you can call it as the ilioinguinal nerve. Okay, but it is not the constituent or the content. It lies outside, right? So you have seen the different, but important thing to see in this diagram, beside the constituents or the contents of the spermatic cord, is these three different coverings. Okay, facial covering. Okay, covering. Now the innermost covering is called as the internal spermatic fascia. This is called as internal spermatic, which I have shown you by this violet line. Then the second covering, which is present here, superficial to the internal spermatic fascia, this here the muscle bundles are shown, and in between the muscle bundle the blue color is shown, the fascia. This covering is called as the cremasteric muscle and its fascia. Okay, this is called as cremasteric muscle and its fascia, right? And then the outermost covering of the fascia, which is covering to the whole of the spermatic cord, is called as the external spermatic fascia. It is called as external sper. So three coverings are there: internal spermatic fascia, cremasteric muscle and its fascia, and the external spermatic fascia. Okay, so these are the parts in a transverse section which we can see in the spermatic cord. So the spermatic cord is the structures within this fascia and the fascia also. That whole thing constitutes the spermatic cord. Now in the next part we will learn how this covering, external, internal and cremasteric muscle and fascia, they ultimately cover those constituents, okay, contents of the spermatic cord, and from where they are derived. Okay, so let's go to the next point. And here, before I just explain you this, let us see this diagram first, because it may be difficult to understand, okay, if I will not explain. Now this line here which is shown here is called as the fascia transversalis, okay, and you know where is fascia. It lies deep to the transversus abdominis muscle. This is the internal oblique muscle, and this is the external oblique abdominis muscle, okay. So these are the three muscles of the anterior abdominal wall, and deep to it lies the fascia transversalis. And within this fascia transversalis there is an opening, and this opening is called as the deep inguinal ring. And from the margin of this deep inguinal ring or opening, through which the vas deferens is going inside the abdominal cavity and then will go to the pelvis. Okay, this vas deferens is going through this, deep inguinal ring, and the margin of this deep inguinal ring, which is formed by the fascia transversalis at the deep inguinal ring, becomes continuous and covers the vas deferens and other structure, pampiniform plexus, okay, and the arteries, okay, lymphatics, they all will be covered by the margins of the fascia, that is the fascia transversalis, which here now you can trace this fascia right from fascia transversalis, which to which we now call as the internal spermatic fascia, and it is going right up to the scrotum, in the scrotum where it is covering to the testis, epididymis and the vas deferens, okay, testis, epididymis. So the innermost covering here is the internal spermatic fascia, okay, which is derived from fascia transversalis at the deep inguinal ring and goes right up to the scrotum, covering to the testis and epididymis. So the whole extent it is covered, okay. So this is the deep inguinal ring, its margin, and from margin the fascia transversalis is continuous as the deep internal spermatic fascia, right. This is the fascia transversus abdominis muscle. Then comes the internal oblique abdominis muscle, and from the margin of the internal oblique lower fibers, okay, they come as the cremasteric muscle, and in between is the fascia. So it is whole layer then starts covering the spermatic cord, okay, and deep to that of the lowermost fibers of the internal oblique abdominis muscle, and they are now called as the cremasteric muscles and its fascia, because this cremasteric muscle, it forms the strands, loops, not a complete sheet around the spermatic cord or testis, but it is in the form of the strand. Loops have this strand, and in between the loop, the intermediate space between the loop is occupied by the fascia. That's why the whole thing is called as cremasteric muscle and its fascia, okay, cremasteric muscle and its fascia. Right, so you have seen the cremasteric muscle first covering to and its fascia, first covering to that of the spermatic cord and then to the testis and epididymis in the scrotum. So that's why I have written here, so you can see this, the cremasteric muscles and its fascia on this side as well as on this side. And here I have written internal spermatic fascia, this violet line, okay, this. So these are the coverings. Now, then there will become a third covering, okay, and this third covering is from the external oblique abdominis muscle. It becomes aponeurosis. So here is muscle fibers, then it becomes aponeurosis, and this is the aponeurosis. This is the site of the superficial inguinal ring. And so where is the superficial inguinal ring? Located just above the pubic crest and pubic tubercle, okay, and there is a slit-like opening that is in the external oblique abdominis aponeurosis, and from the margin of that external oblique abdominis aponeurosis there will start a fascia which will cover in its whole extent, first to the spermatic cord and then to the testis and epididymis in the scrotum, and this is called as the external spermatic fascia. So there will be three fascias here. One is the internal spermatic fascia, then the cremasteric muscle and its fascia, and outermost is the external spermatic fascia. So internal spermatic fascia, cremasteric muscle and its fascia, and the external spermatic fascia. They are thus forming the covering of the spermatic cord. Okay, right from the superficial inguinal ring to the upper pole of the testis. Okay, upper pole, and you see it will form then the covering of the testis. Okay, the spermatic cord will begin from the upper pole of the testis. So now the question comes here, that means why these coverings are here. Okay, three coverings, and they are from where they are derived. Let us see the first covering, which is derived from the fascia transversalis. So when testis from the posterior abdominal wall in the fetal life is descending towards the scrotum because of the contraction of the gubernaculum, which is attached to the skin of the bottom of the scrotum in the fetus, as well as because of the enlargement of the abdomen and the increased pressure within the intra-abdominal cavity because of development of the organs in the abdomen. Now the testis is pushed towards the scrotum. Okay, testis is pushed towards and while it is coming, okay, first from the posterior abdominal wall, then in the lowest part of the anterior abdominal wall, above the inguinal ligament. Okay, then it pushes first to the fascia transversalis, which is covering deep to the transversus abdominis muscle. So it pushes the fascia transversalis at the deep inguinal ring and the testes along with the epididymis and along with the vas deferens. Then it comes into the anti-abdominal wall, okay, where it is forming the inguinal canal. Then it will push the lowest fibers of the internal oblique abdominis as it is descending here, okay, just lateral to the conjoined tendon, okay, and thus it will carry along with it the cremasteric muscle and its fascia, as these testes and epididymis will go down just deep to the internal oblique abdominis muscle. They will be inseated by the loops of the cremasteric muscles and fascia. When the testis will reach to the superficial inguinal ring, which is in the aponeurosis of the external oblique abdominis, then it will also be covered by the outermost sheath, that is the external spermatic fascia. So it will carry the external spermatic fascia as it is coming out through the external inguinal ring, okay, which is a slit-like space in the aponeurosis of the external oblique. So it will carry the outermost facial covering. So thus all these facial covering, three facial covering, they are derived from the three constituent or the structure which forms the anterior abdominal wall. The deepest covering, internal spermatic fascia, comes from fascia transversalis. Then the cremasteric muscle and its fascia comes from that of the internal oblique abdominis lowest fibers, and then the external spermatic fascia comes from the margin of the superficial inguinal ring, aponeurosis of the external oblique abdominis. So it is a covering to the spermatic cord right from superficial inguinal ring up to the testes, okay, in the scrotum. The whole testes and epididymis are covered by. And this is the outermost covering here. See this outermost, this is the skin, okay, and these patches of the muscle which are seen here in the skin, they are subcutaneous muscle, okay, dartos muscle. They are the dartos muscle, right? So this is how the coverings of the spermatic cord, testis and epididymis, they are ultimately derived because of the descent of the testis from abdomen to that of the scrotum, abdomen to the scrotum. It is necessary for testis to come down in the scrotum because the formation of the sperm, spermiogenesis, that needs the lower temperature, because in abdomen temperature is high, so it needs the lower temperature. That's why the testis is brought to that of the scrotum, and because of that there is descent of the testis from abdomen to the scrotum occurs, and while it is coming through anti-abdominal wall, it carries along with it the various facial sheath. While this descent and the covering of the spermatic cord is taking place, okay, this also gives an important clinical application. Okay, clinical application. We need to know this covering in the spermatic cord. Okay, we need to know the covering of and how they are derived, because in one of the surgical operation, what is called as the vasectomy. Okay, vasectomy means cutting the vas deferens, okay, which carries the sperm, okay, which carries from testes, okay, or epididymis. So we have to, in the vasectomy is a family planning operation in which the vas deferens is surgically exposed. That means you give a cut into the skin, a small cut on both the side, because there are two testes, right and left, so you will have to operate on both the side. So give a cut on either side, okay, in the skin, take out the spermatic cord, just cut, slit open these different layers, external, internal, and outer spermatic layers. All these layers you have to cut, and then just have to find out the vas deferens, which is a muscular tube, and you can very well feel the muscular tube. Take it out from all those structures which are surrounding it, and then cut it at two ends, and then tie it at the two ends. Okay, tie the two cut ends of the vas deferens. Okay, that is called as the vasectomy, on right as well as onto the left side, so that the sperms which are produced in the testes will not go towards the penile urethra for ejaculation. Okay, for the ejaculation. Now this completes your question on the contents and covering of the spermatic cord. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video.